The Forgotten Species. The Galactic Council chamber floated in the void between stars, a monument to 300 years of peace. Ambassador Kelrith of the Etheron Collective adjusted his translation collar and watched the holographic display with growing dread. Another system had gone dark. The fourth this cycle. The Devourers advance faster than our models predicted, Prime Coordinator Vass announced, her crystalline form refracting the dim emergency lighting. At current velocity, they will reach the core worlds within 2 standard years. Kelrith had lived through the Unity Wars, back when the galaxy tore itself apart over territory and ideology. He remembered the desperate final days, the alliance that barely held, and the one species that turned the tide before vanishing into legend. "We need options," growled Commander Thrax, his scaled fists clenching. "Our fleets can't even slow them down." The chamber fell silent. Every species represented here had thrown their best weapons, their finest tactical minds, against the Devourers. Nothing worked. The enemy consumed everything, matter, energy, even information itself, leaving only empty space behind. "There is one possibility," Kelrith said quietly, though many will call it madness. All eyes turned toward him. He pulled up an ancient star chart, zooming toward a quarantined region marked in pulsing red. At its center, a yellow dwarf star labeled Sol 3. "The humans," he said. The reaction was immediate. Half the council recoiled. Others made gestures of protection or dismissal. To speak the name was almost taboo. "They're extinct," Vass said flatly. "Everyone knows this." "We assume they're extinct," Kelrith corrected. 3 centuries ago, humanity erected a barrier around their territory. No ship that entered ever returned. No signal escaped. We declared them lost and moved on with our peaceful galaxy." He paused. "But what if we were wrong?" Thrax snorted. "Even if some survived, why would they help us? We tried to eliminate them during the Unity Wars. They owe us nothing." "Precisely why we should try," Kelrith argued. "Because if humans are alive, they remember. They remember that we came to their borders with fleets and ultimatums. They remember that we called them dangerous, uncontrollable, too curious for their own good." He met each gaze in turn, and they remember that they won. The silence stretched longer this time. Everyone knew the stories, though few admitted believing them. Tales of human soldiers who refused to surrender even when their bodies failed. Of human scientists who turned entire moons into weapons. Of human diplomats who negotiated with 7 different species simultaneously, finding the one thread that bound them all. "The quarantine barrier has stood for 300 years, Vass noted. "Our best sensors can't penetrate it. How do you propose we even contact them?" Kelrith smiled grimly. "We don't contact them. We trigger their defenses and hope they're curious enough to answer." The silent sentinels, the exploration vessel, wandering. Truth approached the human quarantine zone with all weapons powered down, and broadcasting surrender signals on every frequency. Captain Mira of the Selkath Navy had volunteered for this mission, knowing it might be suicide. "Entering the outer marker now," her navigator reported, voice tight with fear. The barrier wasn't visible to standard sensors. It existed in quantum space, a fold in reality itself that defied every law of physics the galaxy understood. The humans had built it in less than a cycle after the peace accords, then sealed themselves behind it without explanation. "All stop," Mira commanded. "Begin transmission sequence." They broadcast a simple message in Old Standard, the trade language humans had once spoken. "The galaxy faces extinction. We seek the wisdom of Earth." Nothing happened. Hours passed in tense silence. Mira began to think they'd failed before they started. Then her sensor officer screamed. On every display, space itself began to unfold. Structures emerged from nothing, not ships, but something vast and incomprehensible. They looked organic and mechanical simultaneously, covered in patterns that hurt to observe directly. Each one was larger than a moon. "Defensive satellites," Mira whispered in awe. "They've been here the whole time, invisible." More appeared. Dozens, hundreds. Each one oriented toward the wandering truth with an attention that felt almost alive. Energy readings spiked beyond anything Mira's instruments could measure. "Captain, we're being scanned," her tactical officer reported. "Every system, every deck, every molecule. They're reading our genetic code, our memories, our intentions." He looked up, face pale. "They know everything about us." A single word appeared on every screen simultaneously, written in perfect standard, "Why?" Mira stepped forward, addressing the empty air as if the machines could see her. Perhaps they could. "Because we were wrong about you," she said. "We feared your potential and tried to cage you. You built this cage yourself and locked us out instead. Now something worse than we ever imagined threatens every living thing in the galaxy." She swallowed hard. "We don't deserve your help. But we're asking anyway." The silence returned, longer and heavier than before. Then the defensive satellites began to move, rotating in perfect synchronization. They formed a corridor through the barrier, a tunnel of folded space leading inward toward Sol. A new message appeared. "Approach Mars, prove your sincerity. Do not deviate." As the wandering truth entered human space for the first time in 3 centuries, Mira noticed something that made her blood freeze. The defensive satellites weren't just at the border. They extended inward, layer after layer, forming a sphere that enclosed the entire human territory. "Captain," her sensor officer said shakily, "I'm detecting movement throughout the system. These satellites, they're not defending against invaders from outside." He looked at her with dawning horror. "They're defending the galaxy from whatever the humans became." The red planet's truth Mars had changed. Captain Mira stood on the observation deck as her ship descended through the thin atmosphere, unable to process what her eyes reported. The Mars of ancient records was a barren desert world, notable only as humanity's first interplanetary colony. This Mars was alive. Vast biodomes stretched across entire continents, glowing with internal light. Between them, massive structures rose from the rust-colored soil, towers that touched the edge of space connected by bridges of pure energy. And everywhere, vegetation. Somehow, impossibly, forests covered the surface in geometric patterns that suggested both chaos and perfect order. "Life sign readings are inconsistent," her science officer reported. "I'm detecting billions of organisms, but the signatures don't match any known database. Captain, I think they've engineered entirely new forms of life." A docking facility emerged from the side of the largest structure, opening like a flower to receive them. As the wandering truth settled into the berth, Mira noticed the docking clamps were biological, living tissue that interfaced seamlessly with mechanical systems. "They didn't just advance," she whispered. "They transcended." The airlock cycled. Mira straightened her uniform and stepped through, her diplomatic escort following close behind. The corridor beyond was unlike any architecture she'd seen. Walls that seemed to breathe, lighting that adjusted to their movements, air that tasted of pine forests and rain. At the end of the corridor, a door opened. The human waiting for them looked ordinary, almost disappointingly so. Male, middle-aged by human standards, wearing simple clothing and earth tones. He smiled warmly, but his eyes held depths that suggested he saw far more than visible light. "Welcome to Mars," he said in perfect standard. "I am Designate Chen, currently serving as diplomatic interface. You must be exhausted from your journey. Please come." He led them into a vast garden chamber where a table had been prepared with food and drink. Real food, Mira noted, not synthesized. The luxury of it was staggering. "We've been watching your struggle with the Devourers," Chen said, pouring tea with practiced grace. "We're sorry for your losses. You knew?" Thrax growled, the military officer unable to contain himself. "You watched entire civilizations die and did nothing?" "We did exactly what you asked of us 300 years ago," Chen replied gently. "We stayed away. We kept our dangerous curiosity, our reckless innovation, our frightening potential locked behind our walls. The galaxy wanted peace without humans in it. We gave you that peace." Mira leaned forward. "What happened here?" "What did you become?" Chen's smile turned sad. "We became what we always were, just more so. You feared us because we wouldn't stop asking questions, wouldn't accept limits, wouldn't leave well enough alone. When you quarantined us, we turned that same obsessive curiosity inward." He gestured to the living walls. "We merged biology and technology. We rewrote our own genetic code. We learned to fold space, manipulate quantum fields, and touch the very fabric of reality." "And the defensive satellites?" Mira asked. "Ah." Chen set down his tea. "Those aren't to keep you out, Captain. They're to keep us in." The silence that followed was absolute. 300 years ago, we were frightening because of our potential," Chen continued. "Now we're frightening because we achieved it. We have weapons that could sterilize galaxies, technologies that could rewrite the laws of physics, knowledge that would drive most species mad. He met each of their gazes in turn. The satellites ensure that if we ever lose control, if we ever become the monsters you feared, we can't escape to threaten anyone else. But the Devourers, Mira began, are a problem we've been monitoring. Chen interrupted. They're von Neumann machines, Captain. Self-replicating constructs launched by a species that died out millions of years ago. Their programming degraded, turning them from explorers into destroyers. He stood, moving to a window that overlooked the Martian landscape. The galaxy has thrown conventional weapons at them. Energy weapons, kinetic strikes, even antimatter. All useless. You know how to stop them, Kelrith said. Not a question. We know dozens of ways to stop them, Chen corrected. The question is whether the galaxy is ready to see us use those methods. Whether you're ready to witness what 3 centuries of unrestrained human innovation has created. He turned back to them. And whether you can live with the debt you'll owe us afterward. Thrax stood abruptly. We're dying out there. Pride means nothing against extinction. It's not your pride I'm worried about, Chen said quietly. It's your fear. Because once you see what we've become, you'll want us locked away again. Only this time you'll try much harder to make sure we never come back. Mira felt the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. The galaxy had spent 3 centuries trying to forget humanity existed. Now they needed to invite them back, knowing that the humans who emerged would be gods compared to the species they remembered. Show us, she said finally. Show us what you can do, and we'll deal with the consequences together. Chen studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. But understand, once this door is opened, it cannot be closed again. The galaxy will know what humans have become, and nothing will ever be the same. He pressed his hand against the wall and the entire structure shuddered. Throughout Mars, throughout the solar system, throughout the entire quarantine zone, something vast and ancient began to wake. The human defense fleet was coming online, and the galaxy was about to remember why they had been so afraid. The fleet that shouldn't exist, the observation deck of the Wandering Truth had become a vigil point. For 6 hours, Mira and her crew watched as human space transformed before their eyes. It started with the satellites. The defensive constructs that had seemed dormant began to pulse with light, communicating in cascades of information that moved faster than thought. Then they moved, reconfiguring into new patterns that made Mira's tactical officer physically ill when he tried to map them. Captain, he gasped, looking away from his screen. The mathematics, they're using geometries that shouldn't exist in 3-dimensional space. But it was what emerged from behind Mars that truly shattered their understanding. Ships. Thousands of them. But calling them ships was like calling a star a candle. They weren't built, they grew. Organic hulls merged with crystalline structures, wrapped in fields of bent spacetime. Some were small, barely larger than fighters. Others dwarfed entire stations. And they moved with a grace that defied physics, sliding through space as if reality itself parted to let them pass. Chen appeared beside Mira so suddenly she jumped. He hadn't walked, he'd simply been elsewhere and now was here. Quantum entanglement navigation, he explained, noting her startled expression. Faster than walking, harder on the knees in other ways. His attempt at humor fell flat in the face of what they were witnessing. How many? Mira asked, her voice barely above a whisper. For this mission, approximately 15,000 combat vessels, another 50,000 support craft, and the shepherds, of course, shepherds. Chen pointed to 5 massive structures emerging from behind Jupiter. They were incomprehensibly huge, each one large enough to have its own gravity well. They didn't look like ships at all. They looked like pieces of a planet that had learned to fly. World ships, Chen explained. Self-contained ecosystems, manufacturing centers, and research stations. Each houses roughly 1 million humans and our AI companions. We call them shepherds because they guide the fleet, coordinate movements across vast distances, process tactical data, maintain the supplies and morale of our forces. Kelrith, who had been silent since the display began, finally spoke. Your entire species. You're all soldiers now? No. Chen's expression grew distant. We're all everything now. Soldier, scientist, artist, philosopher. We don't separate these things anymore. The merger of human consciousness with quantum computing allowed us to expand our capacity for parallel thought. Every human in the fleet can fight with the skill of a warrior, while simultaneously composing music, solving equations, and debating ethics. He looked at Kelrith directly. "We didn't abandon our humanity, Ambassador. We amplified it." A junior officer from Mira's crew rushed onto the observation deck, face flushed with excitement and terror. "Captain, we're receiving broadcast signals from Earth. They're offering to live stream everything for the entire galaxy to see." Chen smiled. "Transparency protocol. We decided if we're going to reintroduce ourselves, we should do it properly. No shadows, no secrets. The galaxy will watch everything we do against the Devourers. Every tactic, every technology, every decision. Then you can all judge whether we're saviors or the threat you always feared." "That's insane," Thrax muttered. "You're giving away every strategic advantage." "Are we?" Chen's smile widened. "Commander, even if every species in the galaxy copied everything they're about to see, it would take them centuries to understand it, longer to replicate it. We're not afraid of you knowing our capabilities. We're afraid of you not knowing, of you filling that gap with fear and imagination." The fleet began to move, organizing into formations that somehow seemed both military and artistic. Ships danced around the shepherds like schools of fish around whales, moving in patterns that suggested hive intelligence while maintaining obvious individual agency. "Where are you going?" Mira asked. "To the border world of Threshold 9, Chen replied. "It's the next system in the Devourer's path. Your scouts estimated it has 3 weeks before they arrive." His expression hardened, showing for the first time the steel beneath his friendly demeanor. "We'll be there in 6 hours. And we'll be ready. 6 hours?" Kelrith's translator squawked with disbelief. "That's 40 light years." "Yes," Chen agreed simply. "We've learned to fold space more efficiently. Captain Mira, you and your crew are welcome to accompany us. We have guest quarters prepared on the Shepherd Titan's Hope. Or you can return to the Council with the news that humanity is coming. Either way, the galaxy is about to see what 300 years of human innovation looks like in practice." Mira didn't hesitate. "We're coming with you." "I hoped you'd say that." Chen gestured, and the walls became transparent, giving them a full view of the assembling fleet. "Because you need to understand something before we reach Threshold 9. The Devourers are dangerous, yes. They've consumed 37 systems and killed trillions, but they're just machines following corrupted programming." He turned to face them all, and for the first time, they saw something ancient and implacable in his eyes. "We are humans who spent 3 centuries preparing for the day the galaxy needed us again. We remembered every slight, every fear, every attempt to contain us, and we decided that when we returned we would be so powerful, so advanced, so far beyond your ability to threaten us that you would never dare try again." The fleet began to move, accelerating toward the jump point. "I hoped you'd say that." Chen gestured, and the walls became transparent, giving them a full view of the assembling fleet. "Because you need to understand something before we reach Threshold 9. The Devourers are dangerous, yes. They've consumed 37 systems and killed trillions, but they're just machines following corrupted programming." He turned to face them all, and for the first time, they saw something ancient and implacable in his eyes. "We are humans who spent 3 centuries preparing for the day the galaxy needed us again. We remembered every slight, every fear, every attempt to contain us, and we decided that when we returned we would be so powerful, so advanced, so far beyond your ability to threaten us that you would never dare try again." The fleet began to move, accelerating toward the jump point. The Devourers are about to learn what happens when machines meet the species that refuses to be conquered. And the galaxy. Chen's smile returned, but it held no warmth. The galaxy is going to remember why they were right to fear us in the first place. Not because we're cruel, but because when humans decide to solve a problem, we don't stop until it's solved, no matter what we have to become to do it. The wandering truth shuddered as the shepherd's tractor beam gently captured it. Through the transparent walls, Mira watched as space itself began to fold around the human fleet. They were going to war, and the universe had never seen anything like it.